Father Charles Mutabaruka is my name, a priest of the Archdiocese of Mbarara, born in Buzenga village, Rugazi parish, Rubirizi district, and I grew up in that village, went to several schools, beginning with Buzenga Church School by then, it's now a primary school, went to Rugazi Primary School, went shortly to St. Michael High School in Rubirizi, joined Ibanda Secondary School between 1984 to 89, and later joined the seminary, Katigondo, Kinyamaska, and I was ordained a deacon on the 15th of August 1997 and a priest 15th of August 1999. This year I'm celebrating 25 years, and I thank God that I have been through all this by His grace. The experiences or events that influenced me to be a priest stem from the fact that I come from a place, now a district, Rubirizi district, which has, I believe, in the Archdiocese now, 30 men who have become priests. Some of them are with the Lord already, but most of them are still living. And I'm happy that on the day that I'm going to be celebrating the 25 years, two young men will be ordained priests on the 6th of September. That is Father Max Mbanzi, who is my nephew, and Father Innocent Nwagaba, when they will be ordained. That fact of 30 men from maybe around 1940s up to now is a big impact. And priests are role models, and they have had a big impact on the development, not only of Rugazi or Bunyarugurazi in general, but also the whole country. So I think that influenced me. Secondly, my family, my parents became Christians when they were already grown up, but their first son became a religious brother. So that family has had an impact on me, and I think admiring these many priests from Rugazi and then living in a family like that, it has influenced me to be a priest. Seminary training is always a very rigorous kind of training. And as a person who grew up in secular schools, I say, Ibanda Secondary School, for me to join the seminary, I was expecting that a seminary has certain ways of bringing up people. But naturally, I was very easy to adapt and become a seminarian, like some of them who had begun in the minor and preparatory seminaries. But some of the challenges that I had, one is related to, in Katigondo, I was elected as a student leader, as a student head prefect. And as a head prefect, you have a number of challenges that the staff will give you to solve. And one of those challenges was related to shifting students in order to create room for their colleagues. It was hard, but we were able to solve it with my colleagues. I thank Father Ngole Paul from Moroto Diocese, who was my assistant, and we were able to go through it and create the rooms that the seminary had asked us to do. The second one was about still leadership, because in the seminary we have what we call block elections, where you have kind of alliances, where certain dioceses, certain regions would would block together in order to form leadership. But that blocking has issues. That blocking has challenges that it keeps on eliminating or putting off some of the students that would be coming from certain regions. And with my leadership at that time, we sat down. It was not easy, but we were able to change that so that every region can field leaders at certain times. And I'm happy to say that even up to now, the system that we influenced to begin is still working in one of the seminaries. So I believe that was a big challenge, but we were able to overcome it because we are open and we opened things to discussion until we found out solutions. Before a priest is ordained, and I would say it in my own, on my personal view, you almost know what priesthood is, except that when you reach into ministry, a lot of challenges come. Sometimes you would presume that as a priest, when you bring an initiative, it will be accepted. But many times it's not accepted. If you are not a person who is able to see through and adapt and change and get a common way of doing things, sometimes you will live to believe that you are being opposed. But it needs to have a kind of, thinking that can accommodate others. So I have seen a lot of things being done, not because I'm the one who brought the ideas, but because I brought the idea and others were able to embrace it, or I changed my mentality and were able to go with the common view. So at 25, I can say priesthood is a good vocation, but it requires you to accommodate, to be accommodative in terms of thinking, in terms of action, in terms also of listening to others. So not much has changed, but I say I have learned a lot. I have learned a lot. I'm still different from how I began and how I wish the way the person that I am would be now at the beginning of my priesthood. Maybe I would do things differently, but I must say it has been a learning experience. The most rewarding is when you have an idea and you see it come out. One of the apostolates that the bishop gave me was to work in Radio Maria. And at the time when I was working in Radio Maria, it really had a number of challenges in terms of leadership, in terms of resources, in terms of listenership, in terms of programming, in terms of being acceptable as a media, the church media. And at the beginning, people's expectation about Radio Maria was radio should be able to generate its money, and the idea of a devotional, community-supported media was not in the mind of the people. But when we began, eventually we walked through this journey, a long journey indeed of trials, a long journey of trying this and putting this until when we had a common acceptable way of presenting this media. And I feel so much rewarded because the radio is still loved, the radio is being supported, the radio is being listened to, a number of people still come. So to see that the idea from a radio that was looked at with a lot of apathy, to now a most loving media and most supported, at least in this region. I could also even nationally, is something that I would thank God for. It's a challenge, but it is life. Spiritually, you have to find time for your personal prayer. You have to enrich your life in terms of meditating, reflecting, preparing homilies. Yet the demands are there. And sometimes you come from ministry when you are so tired. You are so tired, and but yet even amidst this fatigue, you have to make sure that you get closer to your God. The life of sacraments is something that I want to recommend, which has sustained me in the 25 years, especially the sacrament of communion and the sacrament of penance. These are sacraments that nourish each one's spiritual life. So, but amidst the demanding activities of life, yes, you have to remain closer to God, because it is closeness to God that will make you to feel that calling, because the Lord calls you every day. The young people, and I must thank God because there are quite many, at least speaking about Mbarara, you are most welcome to this vocation. It is sweet, but also it is challenging. Like people who eat pepper, it is hot, but it has its sweetness, it has its delicacy. So welcome. The church needs you. I always see at the end of the ordination, like the one we have just had, we ordained, like we're going to ordain 15 priests this season. But where they go, you might think that there will be now priests, people are going to be served better. Yes, they're going to be served better, but the demand still remains. We have a number of parishes, we have so many apostolates outside parish life, but every year when the priests are ordained, it's like the demands are still increasing. Like the Lord says in the Gospel of Luke, that ebyokujesha ni bingi konka abagesi ni bake. Ebyokujesha byo ni bingi konka abagesi. I don't know how many priests will come and then we say we are satisfied. There is always a demand every day. There is an additional apostolate, there is an additional demand to attend to, individuals, schools. So young people, mwije orweto ruboneire mukama na abeta nkuku yatumira enshanjo na babiri akayatumira 12 konka amuheru akagira ati byokujesha bingi abageshi bono bake. After 25 years, I believe that life is not going to be the same. The energy is not like when I was ordained at 30. The capacity to do things like I used to do them will be different. I remember when I had started to work in Radio Maria, here and outside this diocese, we used to spend long days in events, meeting people, giving them opportunity to speak to the radio, holding meetings. We would have activity from Monday to Sunday. The following week, we would have activity of 3 months non-stop. And we were only praying that none of us would be sick. Even I remember there were ordinations which I missed because I was in the field. So that energy is gone. It's life that is becoming now much slower, and maybe the demands, I'm not going to respond to the demands that I used to respond to them, but still, I still feel the Lord is calling me. I'm going to do what I can in the ministry that I will be given, so that we can still continue to serve the Lord. I still feel the calling, like I had the calling at the beginning, because the priesthood is that the day you stop to listen to the voice of the Lord is the day the temptations will come in, and there could be worse temptations even to walk away from the vocation. But I feel the Lord is calling me, but the life is going to be slower, and the energy is not as I used to. Sometimes the masses that I used to celebrate maybe will be shorter. So I thank the Lord, and I want to promise Him that I want to continue in the ministry that He has called me. The most important lesson I can say, sometimes you become what you never dreamt of. I never dreamt I would be a priest who would work in the media. I dreamt I would be a priest, but not in the way that I have eventually ended. The capabilities and the potential and the gifts that the Lord gave me within this profession of journalism and mass media, I never thought I had them. So I think what I can say is that we have a lot of potential, but until when you are put into certain ministry, you will not discover that you have those gifts. It is the Lord who calls, and maybe we have even some of the things. That's why sometimes I reflect upon why Jesus had called his disciples. They were fishermen, but what they did not know that they would do them. Like Peter would be a preacher and would leave Jerusalem and go to Rome. That Paul would be an international man who would take the gospel beyond seas and countries. All these, it is the Lord who knows what is inside you, and when you give yourself to Him, then He will make you do that exactly what He sees into you. It's one of the most important lessons that I have learned into life. Ekiri kwenda kubaganira aba rukundeba, and must say this in the local language. Ebiro mushanju orwa mukaga 2024 ahari buzenga nimbeta mwije tujaguze kumwe mukama manya atukorere bikuru ankorere bikuru nkoko nyine yitwa rukugamba Bikira Maria izina ryene rukwera kandi nyo 2015 kwa munana byo bikogo mbindi 15 ukwezi kwa munana icyenda nina nubona atunga amadara rect and acolyte 2015 okwa munana 1996 natunga amadara makuru kibara kweta serious candidacy 15 kwa munana 97 natunga oburyakoni 15 kwa munana 99 natunga obusaserdoti. What does the Lord speak to me about this? And eventually when I was ordained, Bishop yanshaba kukorera obutumwa bwa Radio Maria obwa Bikira Maria. So nyoni nsima Bikira Maria kandi ninyenda ngumwije mu nkwase tumusime emyaka egi 25 kandi niyongera no kusima mukama kurangwa emyaka 25 umwaka nugwo gumwe gunkwise emyaka 25 mwiho wanje nawe Deacon Max Mbanzi naje kuba natungisibwa ubusaserdoti kandi tuza kujaguza kumwe ebine biconco ebirengera habinji emigisha erengera handijo so mwije twatanise abasaserdoti banywani banje abantu abambarra abanyamitanga abo myanya minja hinkorire mwije tujaguze kumwe nuza kuba ryo rwa mukaga umwanya ntwija kuba ntukorera guba rkweta Mugogo Resort n'umwanya murungi aho Arbuzenga Trading Center mwije twatanise tusime Ruhanga icyo ndikwenda kuheruruka nacyo kandi no kubasima abo kumbera heje myaka yona mukanyamba ubutumwa bunkozire bukozire mu Diocese omu nabukora heru y'ihanga nabukora buraya na etororensi ahabo kugumza mukereza Bikira Maria ubu no butumwa ubundi kureba ngunyonka ntari kubasa kwebasa kandi nkoko nabagambira nkantari kubwerebamo nyukanye nako umusaserdoti wo kushoma misa nkatunyisa amasakramento kunkebe byagire kurataho ibyo nembabaza Ruhanga ntubisimira Ruhanga bitu na mnonga ni musima abo kumbaganisiza aciconco cyo busaserdoti so mwije tujaguze mukama baherezo mugisha mwana mwija Father Charles Mutabaruka nugo mazina kandi nimbendeza no kwija kurungi no kujaguza hamwe n'icyo